All right, so in this third video over chapter 17, I wanted to touch on introductions and conclusions because I don't think the textbook mentions them at all. And since you are writing full essays for me as opposed to paragraphs for me, I figure you should probably learn how to do that effectively. So here is a quick note on introductions, and then we'll look at some examples, and then we'll move on to conclusions. So your introductions need to contain a hook, which is the first sentence that really needs to grab your reader. That's why it's called a hook. You hook them so they can't get away. So your first sentence is very, very important. You also want to include some engaging facts or statements. So your introduction is that first impression. Technically, your title is your first impression, and that's why I really try to get you guys to create creative and engaging titles. If you just say, compare, contrast, essay, yeah, nobody really wants to read that. And you might think, well, nobody is going to read it. And yeah, I guess that's true, but that's not a very good attitude to have about it. If you can't be creative, engaging, what makes you think I want to read it? I know I have to, but I shouldn't have to. I shouldn't feel like I have to. Be engaging and creative for me, if not for yourself, and trying to challenge yourself. So make your title good. That is your first impression. And your hook is the same way, as is your entire introduction. So be engaging. What creative elements can you add based on your topic? And hopefully you're talking about something that interests you and is interesting. So you should be able to have something that engages your reader somehow. And then you want to give some foundational information that your audience needs, which titles, for example, or authors or people, any really important stuff that they need to know needs to be in there. And then your thesis statement, and kind of that your topic and your purpose and that foundational info can be completely grouped in with your thesis statement. It just depends. Depends on what you're doing and what you want to do. So as I just said, if your intro stinks, who wants to read it? Again, I may have to, but I really don't want to feel like I have to. And yes, sometimes reading student work, I feel like I have to. So do me a favor, make it good. Make me want to read it. Make me want to keep reading it. If you don't want to imagine an audience, then just do it for me. Do it for my sake. That doesn't mean you should be writing your papers for me, but somebody does have to read your paper. And if you're not engaging and creative about it, you are still making someone read it. I'm wondering what my last bullet is there. Should you save it for last? Introductions are extremely hard to write. They're the hardest thing for me to write, hands down. And it's not because I don't know what my focus is. That's what you have to be careful about. You have to know what your thesis is before you write your paper. But sometimes writing your introduction can be extremely difficult. So what I recommend is write your paper. After you write your paper, write your conclusion, because what you said is fresh in your mind and you can conclude. And then go back and write your introduction. To me, your conclusion is more connected to your paper than your introduction might be, because your introduction just gives that thesis statement. It can be a little, like if you're really engaging your reader and being creative, it's not like you're saying, I'm going to talk about this. And if you are saying that, you need to stop. Be creative and be engaging. That's not a creative and engaging way to start your paper. So that's my recommendation. That's what I did. I even did that with my master's thesis. I wrote my entire thesis. It's 85 pages long. And then I went back and did my introduction. So if you find introductions to be hard and it creates problems for you getting started, save it for last. It's totally fine. As long as, you make sure your thesis is in there and it's accurate to the rest of your paper, you'll be fine if you want to do that. I found it to be very effective. All right, so let's look at some, I just realized my screen's not even that big. There we go. Sorry about that. Let's look at a sample introduction. So, since 1972, video game consoles have been in households, slowly growing into a much more popular medium of entertainment. Okay, that's the first sentence, so technically it's the hook. Is it particularly engaging and amazing and creative? Not really, but it's effective. It's okay. It's not bad. If your first sentence is grammatically incorrect and has spelling errors, I'll take this one, which is just kind of plain and simple, over incorrect and long and bad. So if you don't want to be creative, at least be correct. That's always a good way to start your paper, right? And then it continues. From the Nintendo Entertainment System to the Nintendo Wii, video games have been evolving. Mario, once 8-bit, is now a fully functional three-dimensional figure that can almost reach out and touch the player. See, that's being creative. It's talking about one specific character. Who doesn't know Mario, right? So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to engage their reader somehow. However, many people look down upon this type of entertainment, considering it the root behind many problems, up to and including school shootings. Ooh, there's some controversy in there. Is that what they're going to talk about? I've got no idea. Whether the effect is good or bad, video games have become a staple of many households across the country. And there you go. There's your thesis statement. I believe this essay was just simply informative. So it's not argumentative. It's not arguing that video games are good or bad. It's simply a paper about the prevalence of video games and how they've grown. So I think this is very effective. No, the hook may not be completely mind-boggling and wowing, but it's enough to make you want to keep going. Okay, again, if your hook is so filled with errors that I can't even understand it, that's not a hook. And then how they mention Mario and how he's evolved, and that, ooh, there's some controversy, but whether they're good or bad, they're here. Okay, very good, solid introduction right there. Here's another one. Dreams are a nearly universal element of mankind, not the kind of dreams produced during the REM phase of slumber, but rather the kind associated with goals, ambitions, and wild fantasies. Again, not hugely amazingly creative, but effective, clear, lets the reader know, okay, so dreams, something about dreams. What about it? I want to figure it out. That's what a hook should be doing. It should be getting the reader's attention and pulling them in a bit. Okay, so since this type of dream is so closely associated with fantasy, imagination plays a crucial role in the development of dreams. Unfortunately, so at this point you're like, okay, this is going to be an essay about dream theory or something. I don't know. Unfortunately, societal bias and expectations have a significant amount of influence on one's imagination, and therefore a significant amount of influence on one's dreams. Here's that controversy again. Societal bias and expectations. What on earth is this person doing? Well, imagining a female to be, for example, the best soccer player on the playground or a highly paid CEO is much easier now than it was for mainstream society 30 years ago. Strong gender stereotypes still do exist in this country. Okay, how on earth did we get from dreams to gender stereotypes? I don't know. In Hasbro's television commercial advertisement for its Rose Petal Cottage, the message is sent through imagery and dialogue that every pretty and sweet little girl's dream is to be the queen of domestic servitude, fit in with everybody else, and not upset the status quo. Bam! That's where they connect the dreams in the hook and the gender stereotypes into their thesis. So, what is this paper about? This paper is going to talk about a specific commercial for a specific product, and their analysis of it is that it is, how do I put it in a few terms? Sexist, I guess, that it's feeding that gender stereotype. Bada boom. Your introductions don't have to be, I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to talk about this, and boring. This is an extremely complex introduction that starts in a very different way, and then it progresses, and the reader's like, what on earth is going on? But not in a bad way. This is not a bad focus problem. It's leading from one idea to the next. Extremely effective. So this is a very good introduction. Again, like I said in the last video, if you want to pause these videos at any time and go back and read and really examine these, I highly recommend it. These are very good introductions. This last one is actually an introduction from a narrative. You guys had to write a narrative this quarter, and this has got to be one of my all-time favorite narratives, not because it was perfectly written. You're going to see that the conclusion, I'm going to include the conclusion to all three of these papers. The conclusion's not all that great. I'm sure I suggested revising it, but it was an amazing story. It was hilarious. I died laughing. I made my husband read it. This, to me, is legendary. And sorry, I don't have the whole thing here. It's the title of it, I believe, was Orange Goo. So maybe if I have time, I'll tell you about it. Okay, so upon going outside, the sun was straight up in the sky, suddenly beating down on me like there was a large fire. Okay, there's obviously grammatical error there. Was right next to me. Again, this paper wasn't perfectly written, but it sure was a good narrative. So there's your hook. It's not really telling you what's going on, but that's some good descriptive imagery. A fire was right next to you, even though the sun is, it's just a couple miles away. It's an effective start. Again, not mind-boggling, but it's a start. Okay, it was 100, maybe 110 degrees outside. My fragile body could barely handle the heat. I was about as skinny and pale as a 10-year-old child could be. My father was right behind me. He was 5'6", weighing about 200 pounds. His skin was very tan, the type of tan you only receive from working outside in this unbearable heat. Even though he was 50, he was still incredibly strong. He had a shovel in his right hand. Okay, there's your background information. He's a 10-year-old boy. He's got a very dominating kind of personality type dad. Why? I don't know. What's going to happen? Let's see. Was he going to make me dig my own grave? Was he going to kill me with that shovel? No, he had something much worse planned. So see, in a thesis statement and a narrative really just kind of breaks all the rules. Something's going on with the shovel. Something happened. Pretty much in that essay, he had back-talked his dad because his friend was there and he was trying to show off. And he had to go out and clean up dog poo, and it was horrible and orange and apparently terrible. But again, it was great. It was a great paper. So a quick note on conclusions. I'm really running out of time, so I may have to make another video. So if I do, I apologize. So a quick note on conclusions. You don't want to add any new information in your conclusion. You're wrapping up what you've already said. You're not introducing anything new. You also want to transition somehow to show that you're done. But please don't use in conclusion. I mean, if you've just got nothing else, then whatever. But that's like saying, I am going to write about, it's not fun, it's not engaging, it's not creative, and it shows it. So try to close off some other way. You don't have to rehash everything that you've already talked about. You don't need to do it. I've talked about this, and this. You just want to reinforce your stance or your focus or your purpose. Whatever you did in your paper, you're just reinforcing it. You're not summarizing the whole thing. That's not what your conclusion's for. You're just wrapping it up, just like the examples we saw in some of the body paragraphs. You're just wrapping it up. I guess we only looked at one. And then make your last sentence particularly powerful, but don't end with somebody else's words. Don't end with a quote. If you want to end with a quote, that's fine, but you need to draw it back to your words too. Does that make sense? So end on your own words and end as powerfully as you possibly can.